Good evening, Stalkers, and welcome back to the Grymm Mansion. My name is Abominathan, the kind of doctor that apples are scared of, and I'm joined by my dear friend.
Weird Outreach, the local slasher expert. Why was that a question? That wasn't a question.
The local slasher, maybe, okay, I don't know if that's how you want to call yourself. But speaking of slashers, we have a doozy for you all tonight. One of the greats I think we can all agree on. Coming from the 80s, the original wave of slasher movies. The pervert, the dreamer.
King of the Nightmare Realm. I think it's a fitting title.
Indeed. And yes, of course, we were talking about the one and only Nightmare on Elm Street. The candles are lit, the circles have been closed, and the words of power have been recited. Let us begin tonight's gathering. So, Nightmare on Elm Street. What do you have to say about the any thoughts before we start summarizing?
It's a classic. It is I like it in comparison to, say, the other ones. I think it's a strong one, especially given the subject matter. I think the director here, Wes Craven, did a wonderful job coming up with such a concept. And it's proven in its longevity, I guess. At least throughout the 80s.
I agree.
And 90s.
I think that it just shows, considering just how iconic the character of Freddy Krueger became in pop culture. I think that goes to show just how effective it was and how much of an impression it left in just modern culture.
Yeah, when you compare it to either Michael and Jason, for example, his concept is much more interesting, and it's something that it could happen to you after you start watching the movie. It's like it's a mimetic bomb, but we're getting into analysis territory right now.
Yeah. Then we should start from the beginning.
The movie opens up with title sequence is incorporated into the movie as we watch a montage of someone in a charismatic red and greenish.
Red and green, I think.
Yeah, striped sweater. Is assembling a glove made out of knives and razors and all kinds of sweet things.
Just like the replica we have over there. I really like when slashers use homemade weapons. It's
there's a level of ingenuity.
Makes it much more personal to me as well.
That as well.
Yeah, so we follow this girl because we're kind of in a...
When the movie opens proper, yeah.
It's a very weird sequence, and I think, it's purposeful. It has this kind of mysterious, moody, bluish tint to this whole zone. It's like a facility with pipes and this weird machinery going on. And this girl, Tina, is being chased by this mysterious man with the razor fingers.
Oh yeah, we hear his echo laughter everywhere.
Hmm.
It's very his presence is very felt.
Yep.
As she's being chased deeper and deeper into the building, she reaches a point where everything she sees is just boilers and pipes and steam, and she eventually gets to a furnace where she comes face to face with the man. He shows up behind her out of
Ah.
after just passing passing in front of her, and she
Yep.
wakes up screaming. Her mom then comes into the room, thinking that she just had some sort of sex dream because she's projecting on her daughter, honestly.
Wow.
And they
That went over my head. Nice.
because there's a guy who just shows up in the room asking if she's coming back to bed in a way that we were essentially implying that they were just having sex, and this was interrupted by her
Uh,
teenage daughter having a sex dream of herself because her clothes or night dresses, she tore through it, or so her mom thinks.
right, because in the dream, her night dress is ripped, which is it's ripped in kind of a weird shape, but
Yeah, like
whatever.
claws, like the knives, like he just
Hmm.
tore through.
Yeah, but they just dismiss it, and yeah, and then we skip to this is when the main cast is introduced. There's these four kids. So there's her, who's Tina. There's what I think is her boyfriend, or at least romantic interest, or something,
Yeah,
called
it's
Rod.
complicated.
Rod.
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 Uh-huh.
Rod Lang.
I don't.
Langton?
I don't. I don't fucking care.
Rod something. Whatever. Rod. I think he's played by whatever.
He's a douchebag. Anyway,
Right.
then you have her friend
Yeah,
Nancy
Nancy. And
and
her boyfriend Glenn.
Glenn. Exactly.
So they're walking to school, and Tina and Nancy is talking about a weird nightmare that she had, where she was getting chased by a. I think she says this, like chased by a creepy dude. Uh, I
Nancy.
I think this is Nancy, and then Tina, because we just watched the nightmare that Tina had, and Tina says, "Wait, I also had a nightmare that's very similar to the one that you're talking about." I think I'm getting this correct.
No, I think she mentions a dream that she had long ago, and about a night, like a rope song that they were singing, the 1 2 Freddy's coming for you, and when they play
Actually, not
when they
familiar
when they're
with this.
skipping rope.
Okay, yeah. I'm actually not familiar.
Okay,
Was this made up for the movie, or is this a real thing? Because I'm not
I'm pretty
familiar.
sure it was made up for the movie.
Okay.
But regardless, it's like a nursery rhyme or something,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that reminds her of a dream that she had long ago. And then, yeah, she mentions she had a bad dream herself last night, but she's interrupted because Rod shows up saying that he woke up with a hard on for Tina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, well, they essentially dismiss it because it was just Nancy doesn't want to talk about it because it's just a bad dream.
Mm-hmm.
And Glenn just is also being dismissive. It's just they want to go to sleep. They're late for class. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then later in the day, they go to Tina's house because I think they were invited by the parents, because the idea, or the whole idea was that,
No, Tina invited her friends because she didn't want to sleep alone.
yeah, she didn't want to sleep
Essentially.
alone. She invited specifically Glenn and Nancy.
Mhm.
But then we have Glenn is making like a phone call to his mother, like making kind of a prank with a radio and stuff. And this is when Nancy, I'm pretty sure it's Nancy, explains more details of the dream that she had, and how she saw like it was a guy that had like these claws, these
Like
razors.
the sweater.
Yeah, and Tina's freaking out. She's like, "Wait, that is exactly the dream that I had last night." And we see a shadow cross the outside the window, and they see it too. And Glenn goes outside, and he's calling out like, "Hey, like who's there?" And then yeah, it's a fake out jump scare with Rod being typical douchebag, because in any horror movie you always gotta have the asshole. So he came uninvited to their house, and well, he just takes control of Tina from this point on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have a scene in which Glenn is trying to fall asleep, and to the sound of the other two doing the deed, kind of reminds me of those many times
Let's
when I've
not
had
get
to.
into it.
You could have been
I
quieter.
always
Let
make
me
it up
just say.
to you. Bring you fresh bodies. Like, what more do you want?
Yeah, true.
Gotta do some sacrifices.
It's the payment, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, after they nut, um,
What was that?
sound bites. You gotta have them. They go to sleep.
Yeah,
Finally.
Tina's much happier now. She seems to be much more on board with the idea of Rod staying there.
But things start happening when she
Mhm.
falls asleep. The crucifix that was on her wall falls down for whatever reason. She starts hearing noises here and there. Somebody starts throwing rocks on her, like to her window, even like cracks the window a little bit. She goes out, apparently for some reason, going barefoot, walking barefoot on the street, and yeah, she has another encounter with this man, this mysterious man, and this is the first time we're getting a good look, I think.
Oh, let me just say that while this is happening, there's other people that are being attacked by him.
Yeah, I think
There's that
yeah,
bit with Nancy.
there's a scene in which
Mhm.
Nancy's sleeping, and we see the wallpaper behind her. It starts getting stretched by like some shape looming over her, and then she wakes up for whatever reason, and
Puts the crucifix back on the wall that she had removed to
yes,
sleep with to
yes,
stay safer. It's
yes.
like, no, the wall is there. It's solid. I didn't. It was a dream, bad dream.
The movie does a lot of these mixing kind of, the dream with reality. It's pretty cool. But yes, we get our first good look of our what we would call the protagonist, and what a character. So
He's got personality
yes,
when
he's got
compared
his
to either Jason or Michael, who are the strong silent type.
right. He is the trickster. He's more kind of similar to you in a lot of ways. The trickster likes playing with his prey before the kill.
Because he's in
And
complete control, let's be honest. If you're
right,
dreaming, you are in his realm.
right. He even slashes his own fingers at some point to show that he's like rotten inside. Like he's not even like
It doesn't hurt him, nothing at all.
yeah. Eventually, this the stalker does manage to get a hold of her, and that's when Rod wakes up to her screaming.
Calling for his
And
name.
yes, and not only is she screaming and getting like it's she gets into the sheets and it's like there is someone with her under the sheets. But when Rod uncovers,
You see nothing.
it's yeah, it's just her screaming by herself. But she's like
Getting slashed.
yeah, she starts bleeding from everywhere actually. And she gets dragged into the air like she's being pulled by some invisible force. And Rod is, screaming for help, screaming for like her name, and yeah, it's gruesome, blood everywhere. And then after she's dropped in bed, he goes out the window because I guess
He doesn't want to be blamed for this.
right, and yeah, she's dead.
Nancy and Glenn walk into the room and just see their friend, their friend's corpse just slumped over the bed. There's blood on all over her body. The bed is soaked in blood. There's blood on the walls. There's blood on the ceiling. It's traumatic, gruesome for someone their age.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Anyway, we cut to the police station where someone is walking in and being debriefed in the whole crime scene, asking like, what was she doing there? And he's talking about Nancy, who apparently is her daughter. Asking what her daughter was doing in the house with a lunatic like Rod, sorry, at the late hours of the night. He apparently is some sort of big shot inside of the police force, or like a sheriff or something. I'm not really sure.
I think he's like a sheriff or a deputy.
lieutenant or yeah, whatever. I think they mentioned it later on, but I can't remember now. Regardless, Nancy is very uh, upfront with what happened, and she was there for her friend, for Tina, who had this really bad dream of a guy, and she thought she was going to die, that something bad was going to happen, and she just wanted to be supportive, and that eventually led to her death.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting because she's not necessarily blaming Rod. Like she doesn't. She's kind of in the fence because it's very weird.
Yeah, she
Not to
also
mention,
dreamt about the guy.
yeah, not to mention that no murder weapon was found at the crime scene. None that could match the wounds
Mhm.
that Tina got. And yeah, but they are looking for Rod Lane. They do blame him for that. It's always the outsider, always the. I get it. The evidence points to him because he was the only
A
person
crime of
in the.
passion.
But yes,
The next morning, Nancy is on her way to school when Nancy kind of realizes that she is being followed. Just when she looks back and tries to see if she was in fact being followed, Rod shows up from behind and snatches her, asking like, I'm not going to hurt you. Everything's going to be fine. Like I just want to like just want to let you know that I didn't do it.
Mhm.
Nancy is saying that obviously the everything points to you and that the door was locked from the inside, and Rod just says that it was someone someone was in there.
Yeah,
Someone was in there with
there's
them.
or someone else. Yeah. But then the sheriff and the police
Lieutenant is a lieutenant. Yeah, he's a
lieutenant. There we
lieutenant
go.
indeed.
They show up behind him. It was a
A
trap,
sting.
and it worked. They
I
caught
said it.
him. Nancy's mad. Nancy's really mad at her dad for using
Using
her
her
as
as
bait.
bait.
Yeah.
Classic. All right, so Rod is caught, as you said, and Nancy just turns her back on Dad and heads to school. We have a very similar scene to Halloween's, where Nancy's in class and the
Oh
professor
yeah.
is making a sort of meta commentary. She's commenting on something that is going to be somewhat important to the story. And they're talking about Hamlet and how the grave diggers continuously dig, and that's a metaphor for how he's going to be undone by his mother's lies.
Because Nancy didn't sleep well. This is actually one of the reasons. Like her mother was actually trying to convince her to not go to school. I think she actually didn't sleep at all, which makes sense. She is traumatized from the whole situation, and so she's in class and she's trying to pay attention, but it's clearly very hard. She's trying to stay awake, and slowly and but surely she closes her eyes, and then she looks to her right and she sees Tina herself inside of a body bag, standing outside the door in the hallway of the school, calling for her. And she, like any good horror protagonist, decides to follow the trail of blood. And there's, I think it's the janitor person that's like
Now the hall
patrolling
monitor.
there we go. She crosses with the whole monitor, and she's like, "Hey, you're not. Where's your hallway pass? Like, you're not supposed to be here." And she's like, "Sorry, I really have to go." Like, and when she turns around and she looks again at her, I think it was the face, or was it the hand? Something about her had changed, and now clearly the hall monitor was actually Freddy.
Mhm.
So at this point we know, yeah, she's in a dream. She goes down, like following the trail of blood. It leads to this weird basement of the school, which does probably not of the school itself, and we see the familiar location, the room or the facility complex with the boilers and the pipes and all that, and we get a little chase sequence here.
Right, yeah. Freddy chases her around a bit, and the cool thing about this is that Nancy forces herself to wake up in a pipe, in a steaming hot pipe.
Yeah, she
Pushes her arm against it, and
burns herself
yeah,
on purpose.
she wakes up screaming in class. Her teacher tries to calm her down because she doesn't know what the is going on. And Nancy eventually wakes up. She apologizes and just leaves class.
I think at this point the entire class knows what happened.
Yeah,
Yeah, so in a way it's kind of a break of trope. Like they kind of understand that, she's traumatized and she probably didn't sleep last night because, they probably see some eye bags in her. Like everyone's actually really kind of supportive. Like, yeah, you shouldn't even be here. Like go, like just go rest, like go do something else. And yeah, she
pretty sure if the movie was more recent, you would have everyone in class mock her
yeah.
for being a baby or something.
That trope is definitely a lot more common now.
Anyway, after class, Nancy goes to see Rod and jail.
Mhm.
He really says that he didn't do it, that there's someone else in there with him, that the cuts were all made all at once. Like, what do you mean all at once?
Yeah, he explains it was like 4 razors.
Yeah, all of them slicing her stomach. And he eventually ends his story with, well, the story of his own dream, where he too has dreamt of the same guy. And then this is when Nancy loses her mind.
Yep.
She is in complete denial that she can believe that everyone is dreaming of the same guy and leaves jail, going home. Later at night, she's taking a bath. And it's one of the most iconic scenes in the movie is that as she closes her eyes, Freddy's hand raises from underneath the water to catch her, and then her mom wakes her up and his hand goes back down.
Yeah, that's so good. So good.
Yeah,
but she falls asleep again and the entire bathtub opens into like an ocean or something. Yeah, and she starts drowning in the bathtub, and she's calling for her mom, and her mom is like trying to unlock the bathroom door, but when she opens the door, she's fine. She got out.
Mhm.
But at this point, I think this is when she realizes that okay, I need to not dream, and she starts taking these they're anti-sleep pills technically.
Stay awake. Yeah.
Yeah, stay awake.
Essentially,
pills.
it's probably a bunch of caffeine,
Yeah.
MDMA, all the cool.
Yeah, and she starts taking these and also drinking lots of coffee.
Interesting. She's watching. I don't know if you noticed this, but she's watching The Evil Dead to try and stay awake.
Oh, I didn't actually notice that was the Evil Dead, but yeah.
Yeah, you see very clearly Bruce Campbell's face in the TV screen.
Nice, very nice. Oh, that means that the Evil Dead is fiction inside of this fiction. Wow.
Well, they do cross over.
Yeah, so Glenn shows up in true Enchanted Night fashion outside her window, climbs inside, she invites him, and she tries to make a deal with him. Her plan, I'm not sure if she, I think she explains at this point also like what's going on, or what her theory of what's going on is, that there's this killer that's going after her, and she's gonna try and catch him, and for that she needs Glenn to stand as a guard, by her words, so she can catch him. Yeah, so she starts dreaming. Yeah, so she walks around town inside of the dream. And I think this is the sort of like the sheriff's office or whatever. I don't know what the
Jail.
Yeah, right. It's essentially jail. And she looks inside the window. Oh, and we have a bunch of weird imagery, like she sees like the ghost of Tina. It's been kind of calling for her, and she's trying to ignore it. But she looks inside the window, and she sees Rod sleeping in a cell, and someone opens up the door, and it's the one and only Freddy.
I don't think he opens up. He just phases through it, doesn't he?
Yes, he goes towards his cell and then no clips through the cell. Sorry, this is a new lingo that the cool kids use nowadays. He just goes through the bars. Terminator style. He was gonna do something to Rod, but he notices, or I think Nancy starts screaming to Rod to try and wake him up. And so, right, so he looks and he notices Nancy, and so he starts going after her instead.
Oh, she does start calling for Glenn, who doesn't seem to be helping her because he himself has fallen asleep. And so, without Glenn's help, Nancy can't really wake herself up without a little fight.
Right.
Freddy is starting to break all rules. He's making the stairs into cake. He's breaking through her mirror when she's talking to herself. Um,
Yep.
he essentially, there's no rules that he can't break.
Indeed.
It is his realm after all. And but she ends up waking up.
The alarm clock, right?
Right, the alarm clock. And Glenn is asleep, and she scolds him for falling asleep because it wasn't supposed to.
Like, you had one job, mother.
But then both of them go to the I think they rush to the her dad's office because they're trying to see if Rod's okay because she knows Rod's in danger. The dude on the like the secretary is like, why now, like I don't need this. And her father shows up as well, and he's like, you don't
should
need
be in bed.
yeah, you don't need, like, Rod is sleeping, he's not going to be a problem. And she's like, please, Dad, just go look at him. Go check if he's okay. Go check up on him. And he's like, fine. Meanwhile, we see that the bed sheets that's over Rod as he's sleeping start moving around his neck and tying into a knot. And this is when he wakes up. He's like, what the heck's going on? And he starts getting pulled by it. They enter his cell when this is happening, but it's too late. He's now hanging from a noose.
Yeah,
Homemade.
they took their sweet ass time looking for the keys. Later on,
Yeah, but he dies. So
yeah, he's dead. 'Cause I was just going to say at Rod's funeral,
right.
Nancy starts going off about the true killer, that it wasn't really Rod, and he starts describing
Mhm.
Freddy Krueger to her parents, who clearly know this description. They know
Right,
that something is going on. Like,
their faces, their mouth says no, but their face says yes. And yeah, and he's being very dismissive. Her father and her mother as well.
her mom takes her to a sleep doctor, like
Mhm.
a sleep hospital or clinic, whatever. And they're trying to figure out what's wrong with her. And this is clearly a moment where not even the doctors are really sure what's happening to Nancy, because in one moment her her EEGs are normal and everything seems okay, but when she starts actually dreaming, everything goes haywire.
It goes off the charts.
Mhm.
It's
the
not
machine starts.
right. It's not supposed to be like that. So yeah. So before they had their theories that this was maybe just traumatic stress disorder doing its thing, creating these nightmares. But this is when they're like, no, there's something weird going on here. Clearly, science can no longer explain this.
When Nancy wakes up, she has a white streak of hair. That's really very interesting.
Yes, and
Mhm.
not only that,
A
she
slash, a cut in her arm. But what you want to say, really? Go on.
she also is holding a hat that just showed up out of nowhere. And
It really wasn't with her, but
right,
her mom isn't really convinced.
it's the hat of a man, like a black kind of one of those, I wouldn't say cowboy hats, but like one of those like very like old,
A felt hat, like a fedora.
yes, like a fedora. And she's like, well, see, like this is evidence. This is evidence that there's this guy that's in my dreams and he's trying to kill me.
Have that examined it. And she's like, I threw it out.
Yeah, and she's like, there's literally the
His
name.
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger there's that name on the inside of the hat. And yeah, it's interesting that at this point we notice that Nancy's mom has gotten into alcohol. She's been
Throughout the entire movie, but
but
she's going
now
in
especially, yeah, I think it's vodka or something. It's like a transparent liquor.
something. It's something hard.
Yeah.
which shows that there's she's trying to forget essentially. She's cornered at this point. She's mentally cornered because essentially, and we learn this later, but essentially she's trying to protect her daughter, and she thinks that withholding information is the way to go. Um, yeah,
Right.
and
She eventually have a fight. She accuses her mom of being a drunk.
mhm.
Mom's backslaps her. She leaves the house and goes to have lunch with Glenn.
Yeah, and Glenna
Glenn,
explains. Yeah, no, go ahead.
all right. Glenn has read some things about people who can apparently control dreams in some way or their own dreams. And if they have a nightmare, they turn their backs to the monsters so they lose all power because when you dream, it's only like a reflection of yourself. So nothing to be afraid of. In
Hmm.
the meantime, Nancy is reading like the anarchist cookbook. She's reading how to make pipe bombs. Back home, she is met with bars all over her place. There is especially in the room, I guess. And mom says it's for security.
Yep. This is when she explains the truth, right?
Yeah, she takes
She's
her
like,
to
yeah, she's like, "You're ready to know the truth," because like I've been hiding this from you to protect you, but like now I understand that like you need to know this. Yeah, she takes her down to the basement. There's this chimney, I guess, this
it's a furnace like a salamander or something.
and she reaches with her hand into there and she pulls out something that's been covered with a cloth. She uncovers it and reveals the exact glove with the razors. And she then explains the true origin of Freddy Krueger, that he was a child murderer or molester or something.
They do mention murder, but depending on the source, uh
He was
yeah,
just an absolute lunatic,
monster.
absolute
Yeah.
yeah.
Who somehow evaded trial or an
Right,
actual conviction.
right. He either by neglect or perhaps something else. He was always let off the hook by the law. And so one day the parents of the children who were being victims of his torture and whatever of his schemes
Rampage.
decided it's enough, we're taking matters into our own hands, and they all locked him inside of this facility, which is where he's
Torches and pitchforks.
yeah, this is where he was. They found out where he was. They closed him inside. They filled the place with gasoline and set it ablaze. And
That's how he got his trademark face.
yep, watched him get a tan several times over.
But
Lit up.
somehow Freddy Krueger has returned.
And now he's stronger than ever because he's not bound by the laws of physics. So he killed. Okay, no, it's right here in my notes. It says he killed 20 kids. So child murder of at least 20, and
That's a lot.
probably yeah.
That's a lot. Uh, all right. So after mom shows Nancy the glove, we cut to Glenn, who's studying, listening to music, watching TV, everything, and all at once receives a phone call from his girlfriend, Nancy, who seems to be trying to enlist him in their plot to kill Freddy Krueger, because she really believes now that she can pull him off from the dreams and kill him that way.
Yep.
So once again, Nancy tells him of her plan, asks him not to fall asleep, but as you know, foreshadowing is sometimes relatively obvious. And Glenn falls asleep listening to music and watching TV and reading and all at once everything. Yeah.
It's probably even worse. I think the overstimulation that like is strategy of
It becomes white noise.
right. It's even worse. It makes him
Hmm.
sleepy go even deeper into sleep. So
Yeah. At Nancy's, she's being tucked in by her mom, and when mom leaves, she immediately gets a cup of like a coffee brewer from underneath the bed or whatnot, and goes on with her plan. She tries to call Glenn, although her parents are not very eager that they speak anymore, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And they kind of refuse to let Nancy speak with him on the phone because he has obviously fallen asleep, and there's absolutely nothing that she can do about it now.
Yeah, and they leave the phone out of the.
Mm-hmm.
They disconnect the phone, so she
Essentially,
can't
yeah.
call again.
Nancy kind of freaks out with her own phone. She unplugs it, but then starts hearing someone calling from the phone, the disconnected phone, and decides to pick up. And the voice on the other side says, "I'm your boyfriend now." And at the bottom of the phone, where she would speak, morphs into Freddy's mouth, who's now licking her face.
Oh man, this guy.
Like at this point, Nancy is falling into micro sleep, which Freddy can take advantage of for obvious reasons, right? No matter
Mhm.
how long you're there, it will always feel like longer for him. And so while Nancy is trying to get out and Mom has locked all the doors, we have what, in my opinion, is the most gruesome scene in this entire movie.
Oh yeah. So Glenn is in deep sleep. It's pretty simple what happens. He just hands come out through the bed sheets and grab him, pull him inside the bed like a pit forms in the bed, and everything that he had on the in the bed, like the TV and the headphones, everything gets sucked into that like a black hole almost, until blood just shoots out. This immense amount of blood shooting up into the ceiling, all over the his room. Just everything gets covered in blood, and it's too late.
His mom comes in, sees the horror, and
Yeah, they got both his parents got well, completely up at this point.
they have no idea what's going on because it's impossible for someone to be killed this way.
Yeah, this is completely paranormal. Like, there's no explanation for this. The police they're taking buckets because the parents are in complete shock. They can't do
Blood
anything.
is now pouring through the ceiling beneath his room.
Right, right. The ceiling that's of the
That's the floor of his
under
room.
the
Yeah.
floor of his room. Yes, they're taking with buckets. They're taking the blood out. It's unbelievable. Nancy's dad, who was there, obviously has been
Lieutenant,
called
yep.
because the lieutenant. He's like, "What the heck is that?" He's also just like flabbergasted, like, "What the heck?"
Nancy calls the house to talk to dad because she knows he's going to be
Hmm.
there,
Right.
and asks him to be back home in like a set amount of time because she has a plan. She's going to get this guy.
Yep.
Dad's like, yeah, sure you do, sweetie. Just rest, okay?
Hmm.
Meanwhile, Nancy is setting up some traps
The
because she really
whole
believes.
traps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because she really believes that she's going to pull him from the dream and going to fight him in the real world. Nancy puts Mom to sleep. She sets up an alarm for herself and does a little prayer just in case anything happens to her.
Right. So final confrontation. She walks down the stairs, goes into the basement of her own house, the one that has the little salamander, and she checks to see if the glove is still there, and the glove is not there. Then she descends some more stairs, back inside that famous underground facility with the boiler rooms, and she's calling out for Freddy. At this point, she's like, "Hey, I'm here." No answer. Actually, there is like some laughter or something, and once again, the ghost of Tina taunting her. She's not fazed by this. Kruger eventually does get to her and starts chasing her. She flings herself down a railing and is like teleported outside of her house, falls on top of these flowers or whatever, this thing, and then I think Freddy Krueger falls either with her or he's already there.
No, no, he falls behind her. Yeah.
I'm gonna take this opportunity to mention the way that Freddy Krueger chases people is it's the best way I can describe it. It's like a weird uncle who doesn't see his nephews too often, and when he does see them, he tries to play with them and scares them like that. That's
That's
the
a good
vibe.
description. That's a
That's
great
the
description.
Yeah, that's the vibe that I'm getting from Freddy. Right. So
Yeah.
he eventually manages to get to Nancy,
No,
and
it's the other way around actually.
right,
Nancy's watch gives her a warning that it's her last 10 seconds. So she jumps at
mhm,
Freddy to
right,
wake up with him in
with
his
him.
arms.
Yep,
And when she does wake up, Freddy is in the room. Not in her arms, but he's in the room. It worked.
because she wakes up and she looks around and
Yeah, she's
there's
nothing.
no one there. For a second, she thinks, "Oh man, I really am a lunatic, am I?" But yeah, Freddy Krueger jumps out of her, and phase two of the plan is kicked into action. She gets out of the room, sets up all of the traps, and Freddy triggers like most of them. He gets hit with a hammer. He gets
The exploding light bulb.
yeah, he gets that. He gets there's so many. It's incredible. Like, hey, I'm surprised that most of them worked because usually don't.
All throughout this, she's screaming through the windows, breaking every window in her house, trying to call the attention
Right.
to the police that she's got the killer in with her in the room in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So she eventually lures him into the basement, douses him with gasoline, and lights him on fire, which is what finally triggers the police to come to because the house is on fire.
Yep.
The lieutenant's daughter is in danger. And when the cops arrive, she leads them into the basement, but she realizes he's no longer there and he's after her mom.
Yeah. There's these
The lieutenant,
flaming
sorry, go on.
footsteps.
True. The carpet's all
Footprints.
melted.
Yep.
And so Freddy, when the lieutenant opens the door, Freddy is on top of his wife, on fire,
Mm-hmm.
everything screaming. He just grabs the duvet and covers him. And when he pulls it back, his wife is a skeleton. There's a portal to hell opened in the bed, and she's being dragged down, like still in her nightgown, but a burnt skeleton with
Yep.
hair. And
It's too late.
just as quickly as this happens, the bed is back to normal, and Nancy is just screaming for her mom. What just happened?
Mm-hmm. They have a kind of an exchange like Nancy and her dad. They don't know what to do. Like it's both had to watch this horrible event. Her dad decides to leave the room to go
Yeah, Nancy says,
handle.
"I'm all right. I'll be right down."
He closes the door, so she's alone in her mother's bedroom, and Freddy comes out of the bed, and but Nancy's not phased. She says, like, I know your secret. You did all of this. Like,
I know
it's
you. I know you have no power if I give you none. Essentially, I want my friends
mhm,
and family back. She
yeah,
quite literally turns her back on him.
mm-hmm,
He's flabbergasted by all of this because like what just happened?
yeah, and he dissolves after this.
Yeah. As Nancy reaches for the door and opens it, she's
Yeah,
met with her outside. It's a beautiful day. She's dressed up to go to school like nothing happened. She's incredulous. And mom comes out of the house, I'm sorry, saying that she looks like she could use a bit more sleep. Her boyfriend and friends drive up the street together. And just as they're getting comfortable, the convertible, the top closes on them.
yeah,
And
all
with
the
that,
doors lock and stuff. All the
yeah,
windows
the windows start
start rolling
closing.
up,
Mhm. The
and the
pattern
car.
matches the same as his shirt.
Right, it's the famous red and green stripes on at the top of the car, and the car drives away on its by itself. Her mom is still waving at her,
While we
and then
listen to the nursery rhyme.
an arm, the arm of Freddy, punches through the window of the front door, grabs Nancy's mom, and pulls her into the door. And that's how the movie ends. This entire sequence from the moment when she fell asleep the last time up to now has all been a dream, and she's never woken up. And it's
I don't know if it's the first one to do it, but it does it really well.
yeah, and it's interesting because it does kind of give you a bit of a it's a bit mysterious. It's a bit
Dubious,
right.
ambiguous.
It's ambiguous what exactly is a dream and what exactly is reality. At this last part of the movie, because right. I think the entire thing was a dream, but then again, she was micro sleeping at some points in which there's kind of this mix between the dream and reality. But that's kind of the, if we want to go directly to analysis, that's kind of the point of the movie, is to create this fear that a lot of dreams, a lot of the things that we dream about, they're just like our daily lives. Like in Inception, dreams feel real when you're in them. When you're dreaming, you can't really distinguish unless you're really good at lucid dreaming. And so there is the movie uses this to its advantage. When you are dreaming, it's not clear if you're dreaming or not. Everything makes sense, even if it does. Even when you wake up and you think about it, it's like, well, that makes no sense. In the dream, everything
It
makes
does.
perfect sense, no matter how outlandish it is. And yeah, the movie does that really well. Does that experience? It's really, yeah, it's really effective. And I also love in a way, kind of they mix a bit of philosophy and science to it. When Nancy is being monitored, and her sleep is being monitored, the doctor explains to her mom that
They don't really understand dream.
right, that dreams, they know that dreams are necessary for the health of people, but no one really knows why they happen or how they work. And yeah, it once again, it contributes to the fear of the unknown, fear of what you
Yeah,
don't
especially
understand.
because it is so real to us. Like every person dreams,
Mm-hmm.
and it could happen to you. The only thing that you need in order to dream about him is to know of him. Once you know of him, it's already too late.
Which is interesting because that implies that, so if this is kind of like a brain virus, like a, I don't know what the correct name is for it, but if it is one of
A
those,
mimetic virus.
right, if it was one of those mimetic viruses, so it started somewhere. Because the first person who had the dream, was it Tina or uh was it Rod? I
In
think it
the
was
movie that we see, it was Tina.
right, but she must have learned once again from somewhere.
Yeah, from someone else.
So this
Um,
chain goes back.
yeah, it goes back. In other movies, I'm not really sure which one, but you do see why Freddy is like that. I'm not sure if this was the director's original idea or
Right,
if it
because
was supposed to be um, mysterious.
because the director changed. Like we
Hmm.
got this director from this movie, but then all the other movies up to until like what, the 90s, it was all different directors. So
Or
yeah,
pretty much, yeah.
the vision might have gotten a little different from
Hmm.
what was intended. Speaking of the director, Wes Craven, right?
Yes.
He actually has a very clear origin to the idea. Apparently, the idea for this movie came from an actual event that happened in the United States around, I think it was the 80s or 70s, or maybe late. No, right, it must be the 80s or 70s. I think it was the 70s. It was a series of deaths that were all connected somehow, relating to a group from Laos. This was after or during the Vietnam War. So this group, apparently, they came from an ethnicity in Laos who was used by the American government to attack the government of Laos, or the, I guess, the communists of Laos who were supporting the communists of Vietnam. And essentially, this group, oh, who was very deeply religious, by the way. They had like a lot of they had like their own religion, their own culture, and they had this idea of this demon who would attack them at night and kill them at night if they betrayed the legacy of their people. It was something like that, or their community. And they were deeply scarred by the war, went to the United States as refugees from the war. And it was from among these groups, so it was maybe like thousands of people. From among these groups, there were, I think, almost 100 of them, maybe not 100, but like several dozen people died in their sleep after having several nightmares that they were being chased by this demon from their culture. You know, because they were deeply religious, so they still believe that they had betrayed their homeland, both because they were attacking civilians and they were killing people, and also because they essentially abandoned their motherland, and so they carried this guilt almost like as a group, as a
People.
as right as a people they carried this guilt, and so there's a scientific explanation that it was this trauma, this collective trauma plus their beliefs that essentially gave them, in sort of like a mass hysteria fashion, made them have heart attacks during their sleep, and like several, like dozen, died because of this in very short amount of time. But this inspired Wes Craven to invent Freddy Krueger, and I think, yeah, it actually is, when you think about it from the scientific perspective. Like, yeah, this makes it. It's even scarier when you think about the background of
How
this.
real it is. Uh-huh.
Right,
That's very
that
interesting.
mass hysteria can do a lot of things. It can really, yeah, it can kill people. Like with the dancing plague in the Middle Ages, how powerful the psyche is.
Indeed. That's very interesting. As I was saying, I do know that in later installments they do explain him as making a pact with a demon on some demons, and he essentially needs to be refueled of new souls each time he dies. That's not canon for this movie. Neither is the fact that he's a child molester. That's also something that I know Wes Craven distanced himself um, as to, you know, um,
I get it.
it's
I
kind
guess.
of exploitative in a way.
Right, right. Killing children is more socially acceptable than molesting children.
Well, it would make him a bigger monster, and I think that's what they do in
Right.
the more recent remake. They straight up went for that.
Yeah, and if we're going to also inspect this through the lens of dark law, I do think that indeed, a child molester stalker, depending on his methods, depending on the way that the deaths occur, has a lot of possibility to break the Carcosa conventions. I also
Definitely.
killing children is only okay if it proves a point, and in a way, if it functions as sort of like a cautionary tale of sorts. That's fair game. But once you go into into their homes, and you do unspeakable things to them, and they haven't done anything wrong, then that's outside of the bounds of the law, and that's punishable. So yeah, Freddy Krueger, I think, would.
But to be fair, that was previous to his exploits in the movie, and in the movie he is just focused on teenagers who are totally in within the Carcosa conventions.
Right, because a teenager, yes, especially
Especially, it carries
especially.
over those tropes from earlier, like how from Halloween, essentially, of being if sexually promiscuous equals bad,
Yes,
therefore death.
I think it's the logic is that once you lose your virginity outside of marriage, Carcosa conventions no longer apply to you. Like, you're fair game, do whatever you want. I think it's one of the clauses. I'm paraphrasing. It's not exactly like this, but in practice, something like that.
Right. I think that what I wanted to mention was about their personalities and how Freddy is much more different than
Oh yeah,
everyone else.
yeah,
Until we get to the 90s and there's Ghostface, obviously.
and some others.
Yeah, but I think if we were to narrow it down, there's three big slashers, even though it's sad not to include Hellraiser in there. We could make it a big four, obviously.
Right, but like, okay, do you mean slashers as in series or as in characters?
Mostly because these franchises were the most successful. They were
Okay,
the most, they had the most longevity.
right, because
And there's other things like, say, Puppet Master. Puppet Master is considered a slasher, right? And but it's Even Hellraiser, I don't want to put him compared to the others because even though it had as many
It's
movies as the others,
mhm.
most of them weren't released in cinema.
Right, and I personally don't think I wouldn't consider Hellraiser to be like a pure slasher, or at least
Yeah, at least not the first one, right? And I completely understand.
right, because I think when we're talking about slasher classics, we're talking about the that original wave of it's this guy who kills people by slashing them, and he's mysterious, he's paranormal, he's got a mask or no mask, depends on it, but yeah, that's that wave, and I feel like Hellraiser is a little out to the
Yeah,
side. It
yeah,
doesn't really
I
belong in that
understand.
wave.
I agree with you.
So yeah, the big three would be Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Michael.
And so, of those three, there's clearly one that stands like there's not like the others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean this as a diss to the other two, obviously, as it's more than clear for everyone who's been listening to us that I am a big fan of Michael Myers and of Halloween.
Of
And
course.
so, although it is so interesting to see a slasher with a personality,
Yes.
and there isn't much of it in this one, but later on, as the movies become more and more abundant and probably with less quality, because honestly, the first one is clearly much better than the other ones. Um, what I want to say is he eventually becomes the Joker of these big three. And I don't mean the DC Joker, I mean like a trickster, as you said. So
Mm-hmm.
he has a lot of fun chasing his prey. And obviously, since he has full control of what's happening, he can make really, really funny shit happen. There is, however, one sequel which I do not consider to be worse than this one. And is one that, if we haven't watched, we must, which is uh, the one where Wes comes back to direct
Oh yeah.
the movie, Wes Craven's New Nightmare,
Nice.
which does something that is very interesting for these kinds of movies. Wes Craven's New Nightmare picks up like it's not really a continuation of the other movies. It's more Craven going like, okay, you guys had all this fun with my character, but now it's time that I bring it back and try to make it more like what I envisioned. It's a movie where a movie is being shot, and the original Nancy is now much older and she's playing herself in a much older movie, and she starts dreaming of Freddy in real life, but not like in a normal way. It's like it's affecting her actual life. She's starting to fear that whatever is happening is seeping into her life, no matter how ridiculous it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting to see this. We had I don't know, yeah, 6 movies of Freddy being an absolute trickster and playing pranks on everyone, to see him go back to something that is super serious, more cold-blooded. I don't know, I feel like the movie didn't do as well, but at the same time it was,
More faithful.
yes,
Yeah.
not only the concept was really good, I think the execution was also good because I can compare it a lot to this one. It's the same kind of the same story beats,
Nice.
even though it's meta.
Actually, I think that makes it funnier. Makes it more interesting because it's almost kind of like satire, not a satire, but like Wes Craven's making fun of all the other directors.
Definitely.
Like, you made movies. Well, this is what I'm gonna do to you, who made movies about my guy. It almost feels like that, incorporating the different visions, different interpretations. But yeah, it was like I made a mistake earlier. So Johnny Depp. So yeah, Johnny Depp plays as Glenn. Thought it was man. It's so weird seeing these famous actors that are famous now as like teenagers or like really young guys. It's like man, because I didn't recognize them at first.
It's something also interesting that I know he does not return for New Nightmare because Craven, I think, was too shy to ask him. Like he's a big shot now. Like why would he come make my silly movie
Hmm.
about his first movie, you know?
Right.
But in the end I think Johnny Depp would have liked to be there.
Probably. I know he's caught up in controversy nowadays, but back then he wasn't. In the 90s, I don't think.
No, I don't care about that. I don't care who was shed in whose bed. The fact that that was even on. I killed thralls because of that.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, is there anything else that you would like to add? I feel like this is one of those that there isn't much that we can say.
Right.
You know,
It's like
there's a million
it's
out
a
there.
classic. It's a classic, but at the same time, I think part of the reason why it is a classic is that it is pretty simple. The concept isn't as complex as, say, like Pennywise or stuff like that. So yeah, there isn't much to say here. The acting was, I think, it was pretty convincing. I think the just in general the movies is really well made, and if you said this already, but yeah, like Wes Craven is really good director of horror.
Not
And
only that, the actors, they're all except for, I mean, except for the parents, Robert Englund, who was iconic in his role of Freddy. I think usually people say that no one's irreplaceable, but at the same time, those are some big shoes to fill.
yeah, yeah, indeed.
Uh, yeah, I think they're all pretty good. I think it's much better when compared to Friday, for example, the first one.
Oh yeah,
Uh, and possibly Halloween, but Halloween has less characters, I think.
Halloween is
There's
full budget. I don't know what the budget for this one was.
uh probably around the same.
Really?
I
It,
think.
it
So.
feels higher
No,
budget.
definitely not. Definitely not.
No,
It's
it's
much
it's
higher.
higher. Yeah. But yeah, it's a movie for the ages. It's
It's also the movie that kickstarted New Line Cinema. Later on, gave us Lord of the Rings.
but yeah, it's the impact that this had. It's impossible to overstate.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
All right. If that's that, from my own perspective, I'm going to give Nightmare a solid 7 white sheep.
nice. All right. So with that being said, the candles are out. The circles have been closed, and we let silence reign again. The Grymm Mansion is closing its gates. Have a horrible night, and until we meet again, sleep well, my friends.
Or don't.